series here on YouTube. And today I'm interviewing Brad Barber of Cabin Coffee Company. Brad started off his career working in corporate restaurants, helping build out restaurants all over the country. And then a corporate downsizing caused him to have a different change in what he did. He'd always wanted to start a coffee shop. And so Brad did that with his wife and went from there to building an empire of cabin coffee companies all over Iowa. So today, enjoy our interview with Brad Barber.
All in you. Everything you're looking for, it's all in you. You gotta believe that it's all in you. Everything you're searching for, it's all in you.
Everybody, it's Jeff here once again with the Freedom Nation podcast. And today I have my friend from Iowa, Brad Barber, on. Brad is the CEO and founder or co-founder of Cabin Coffee Company up in Iowa. Brad started off with one coffee shop and grew to many. So he's going to tell us his story of how he got to where he's at and really how he grew this business. So Brad, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff. My honor, sir.
We had a great conversation a few weeks ago, and I just could not wait to tell your story on here. So why don't we start with that? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, how you ended up where you're at there in Iowa, and because you're a fellow Texan, so got to get that out there. But how you got up there and how you got to where you're at today.
Well, great. It all began really back in Garland, Texas, back in around 1973. I was coming back, and I remember this very vividly. My orthodontist was over off of Saturn Road.
Okay.
And so we got out of the orthodontist, and my mother and I were going home, and I was complaining about my braces. I had braces. When you're a kid, they tighten them, and it would hurt. And I don't really remember exactly how the transition came about, but my mother said, I'm really appreciative of the founders of the Dallas Morning News and Channel 8. And I said, Mom, what does that have to do with my braces? And she said, if they wouldn't have started this business, me and you may not have a roof over our heads, food to eat, or clothes on our back.
Mm-hmm.
Now I was about 12 at the time. And so we're riding home, and I go, and my friends and I used to hang out this little 7-Eleven off Centerville Road in Garden.
Okay.
So, and the reason I'm being very specific about these places is because people need to remember that there's seeds that are planted in their life almost every day. And these seeds, we need to take a look at them to see if we need to nurture them and water them and enrich them for us to be able to grow. And so I remember going over there, and me and my friends, we're 12-year-old boys, we thought we were something else, we go in the 7-Eleven, we get a big old Slurpee, and we get some cupcakes and go sit on the back transformer of the 7-Eleven and see who was driving by,
Yeah.
And I remember telling my friends, one of these days I'm going to own my own business. And they said, well, why? And I told them about what my mother said.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my head, ever since that day, I had a dream of owning a business.
Okay.
So let's fast forward 40 years. Okay. 35, 40 years. I was 12. I was 41 when we started. So it was 30 years. I was 41 when my wife and I started Cabin Coffee. So when my wife and I thought about opening, we live in this town called Clear Lake, Iowa, which is north central Iowa. And it's a tourist town. Lots of folks from Minneapolis, lots of folks from Des Moines, Omaha come here during the summer. The town is built around the lake. Looks like a little Norman Rockwell town. It's just drop dead gorgeous. And so anyway, we thought if we could think of the right business in downtown Clear Lake, we would be successful. So one day we were down in Des Moines, and we came out of this bagel and coffee shop, and we thought, there's not a specialty coffee shop in downtown Clear Lake. Mm-hmm. So we thought that would be pretty successful. And we always loved log homes. So Jeff, we would cut out bedrooms and dining rooms and bathrooms and kitchens of these log homes that we love because we're going to build one day. And so we decided to make it a cabin feel. So we're on the way home. It's 2 hours from Des Moines to Clear Lake, and we're kicking out all these names. And my 7-year-old daughter, we're talking lodge, cabin, coffee, blah blah blah. And my daughter just said Cabin Coffee Company. We thought, hey, that's got a good click.
Pretty simple.
So literally on the way home, we decided to do it. In 2 months, we had a business plan. We found a location, got the business plan, was approved by the bank and the SBA. But the day we were approved, the day I got laid off. And so that was a bummer. So anyway, that was part of the plan for me to have income. But the guy that I knew that was building these hotels for me was on this board for this ethanol plant. So they hired me as a consultant to oversee the development of the ethanol plant. Well, they paid me a lot of money for that. And so when that was about over, my wife and I decided, hey, let's do this little cabin coffee gig. So we found a better location, didn't have to borrow as much money. So we went, so my mother was up one weekend, and my mother was totally against us doing this business.
You've got to have a good job.
Yeah. And I said, well, Mother, I said, I really need your support emotionally. I mean, it's really important. In fact, right now I'm talking about, it still almost brings me to tears. You know, she's passed away now. But anyway, well, she said, she always called me sweetie. She said, well, sweetie, what do you mean? And I said, well, I said, Mom, I said, I know you're very conservative. She always had this job for the Dallas Morning News, did great. She was telecommunications administrator there for, I don't know how many years, and retired from there. And I said, well, it's just important. I said, Mom, you're really the reason I'm opening this store. And she says, what do you mean?
It's all your fault.
Said, it's all your fault because, and I told her that story, about on the way home from the orthodontist and her appreciating the folks that decided to, do the, start the Dallas Morning News. And then Channel 8 came along, there, WFAA in the Metroplex. But anyway, she said, I told you that story. I said, yes, Mother. I said, that's why I'm doing this. And so my wife did all the due diligence work and found a great supplier for our coffee equipment, our sauces and syrups. And we have all the Cadillacs of all the sauces and syrups. My wife said, if we're going to do this, we want to do it first class quality, no skipping. And we're going to roast our own coffee. I said, well, sweetheart, we can't roast our own coffee. We can't afford to buy a roaster. She said, we cannot afford not to, because we can buy our green coffee, right, and roast it, and fresh roasted coffee tastes, it's much fresher. It's like bread. When you eat bread right out of the oven, it's better. The longer, after it's baked, the distance there from time you eat it from time it's baked, if it's a week old, it's not as good. Coffee is exactly the same way.
Okay.
So she did all the due diligence. We bought all our log furniture mostly up from northern Minnesota, put it together. The first weekend we opened, it was Christmas by the lake. Tens of thousands of people are here to watch this lighted parade at night.
Couldn't be better timing.
It's freezing cold, brother. It's like 15 degrees out, bitterly cold. And that was the second day we were open, Jeff. And we had a line out the door around the corner. And all these kids were wanting these hot chocolates.
Sure.
And we were making all these hot chocolates and lattes, and people were just so thrilled to have this new store in our little town. And I remember walking out that day after taking the last bit of trash out, and I'm thinking, okay, God, if this doesn't work, just today was just a great ride to see all the smiles on these families' faces coming in here and getting a hot chocolate and watching Santa Claus, being pulled by a set of horses down Maine. And so, but we always dreamed, Jeff, we would want more than one, because I worked for Applebee's for a number of years in Helzberg Diamond in their development construction department. My wife had a great career in retail and sales. And so that's really a lot of the reason we're successful is my wife's experience. I know you're visiting with me, but most of the credit goes to my lovely wife. And, but anyway, we just made a great team.
Yeah.
And so we knew we wanted more than one. And so 2 years and 3 months later, thank goodness we were open, had enough cash flow and everything to open up a second store in Mason City, Iowa.
Okay.
And we did that for one purpose, for us to be able to franchise stores. We knew that people needed to see something in a bigger community. So we opened it up by the Walmart. And within 9 months, we got our first franchise.
Nice.
And then from then on, it's, you know, it's history. So
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yep.
Or were you able to, so in all these different markets, were you able to kind of keep that cabin feel throughout the entire market?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that was one thing that, you know, in fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is a lesson for people that are starting their own business or whatever, and they have their, you know, their dream. You know, when we were getting ready to do it here in Clear Lake, they really didn't want us to put logs on the face because it's more of a nautical feel here in Clear Lake. I said, well,
Yeah.
I can't have a nautical feel and have a cabin coffee.
Yeah, it's just not going to work.
You gotta have a warm, friendly atmosphere, and you got to be able to visualize. If you're thinking of a cabin coffee, well, it's not going to look nautical, right, on the outside or inside. So the brand's got to come from the inside of your soul all the way out to your products, your retail, your furniture, your fixtures, everything, your cups, you know. And so anyway, we got that passed and everything went through really well. And so now we've had stores like in Blairsville, Georgia. We took over a filling station.
Okay.
But we still were able to do a few little accents. It's a brick building, but we were still able to do little accents to make it look like a cabin coffee.
Sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what, you know, for those out there, you know, because part of our audience are people who are thinking about starting businesses, but the other part of our audience, people that are in businesses, and quite often they've painted themselves into a corner. What was the biggest challenge to that second store of making that first jump to the new market?
Right. I think the biggest challenge in that was how we were going to design that second store to be more efficient. And I got to tell you, we screwed up. The second store. Okay, we only kept that for 5 years, and we relocated and bought a building in same place in Mason City. So but I'll tell you what, I say that, but the biggest screw up was my wife was right. We should have kept our original design. It worked out well. Our bar flow, how our bar was set up. We made it too big in that second store, and we had to walk too much, and so it wasn't efficient. So we had to have too many people working in the store. Okay. Because we spread the kitchen out too much.
That's always the challenge. I mean, I know when we opened our second co-working space, you know, you think, okay, well, this one, I was always restricted by the other place. And then, okay, so I've got a much bigger canvas to paint in the new place. Yeah. And, you know, realizing that we made it so massive that, you know, we had a hard time filling the space because we just had too much space and not enough people inside that space. And there's, you know, in our world, it's something about, there's a tipping point when you reach enough people in the building, there's a certain energy that's palpable in the room. And until you get that to that level, it feels like a library and people don't want to come. And so you have to get to that tipping point.
It's the same with our cabin coffees.
Yeah.
I tell you what, if somebody were to tell me, well, I want to go bigger, you don't have to necessarily go bigger to get just as much business, and it feels more vibrant and energetic and a lot more synergy. Yeah. So it's the exact same way, Jeff.
At what point, you know, because I mean, the biggest part about a franchise is really that system. I mean, you're basically selling the system. So, you know, at what point did you feel comfortable to say, okay, we've got this tightened up to where we can now really start to grow our franchises?
Yeah, you never really know, but we worked at it from the very beginning with our first store. Okay. We kept really good training guides, and my wife is very confident and competent on training. Now, I got to tell you, from where we were at then to now, it's like the difference between night and day, as far as it is east as it is west. Okay. But we still have a lot of room to grow.
Yeah.
But we kept up with it. And okay, and here's the other thing, Angie and I just didn't get anywhere because of me and Angie. We
Hmm.
were so blessed to have so many other people around us that offered their help,
Sure.
that had their suggestions. We had this lady named Charla that moved from Colorado here to Iowa, and she's a technical writer.
Okay.
And Angie was putting together our first training manual for our franchisee. We had one, but we had to get it all concise.
Sure.
And Charlotte comes up to Angie and says, "Oh, you need a portal." And Angie, now this would have been in 2007. And
Okay.
Angie says, "What do you mean by a portal, Charlotte?" She says, "Well, on your website, we can put all your training materials on a portal and people can access that." And Angie said, "You can do that for us?" And she said, "Yeah."
Hmm.
So Angie handed Charla our training materials, and man, she went to work on making that much better, much more concise. And we put a portal on there, and we still use that now. Our franchise information portal, everybody has access to it
Sure.
to get anything they need, from W-2 forms to, to our I-9 forms, to training materials, to uh, 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 any information they need is on to operate that store is on our FIT.
That's awesome. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's always the thing I hear about franchises. I mean, they're, you live or die by the systems that you put in place,
you
and
do.
if you don't do a good job of that, you've got people going 10 different directions.
Right. And it stretched us a lot
Yeah.
too, Jeff. I mean, because you think, oh my gosh, and there were times, man, we were tight on money, brother. I
Mhm.
mean, that first year or two, Angie and I, we only had our house payment. That's all we had.
Yeah.
And so we only paid ourselves for our house, and everything else we put right back in that company, because
Mhm.
it was like a lion that first year. We still had to pour money into it because we had to add on to the kitchen. We didn't make
Sure.
it big enough.
Yeah.
And then we noticed, hey, we better have our own cups. So our food supplier back then, we didn't buy enough to where they did it. So we went out and got a loan and bought 250,000 cups, logo cups, and put them down in our basement under Cabin Coffee. And within 9 months, though, we were able to buy our building. We leased it now we didn't buy it cash. We didn't have the cash to pay
Yeah, of
for it
course.
all,
But
but at least we had a good enough cash flow to where we could show the bank, where the bank loaned us the money to buy the
yeah.
building. But anyway, that those first few years were lean, brother.
Oh,
But then the other thing then, and when we started to do the franchising, thank goodness we found a great attorney,
okay.
and our accountant we already had. So we had some really good people guiding us. So it was just a little bit of Angie and I, and God bless all the other smart people around us
Mhm.
that were able to help us grow,
Yeah.
and do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's
And our
that's
employees
really the
too.
truth. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I want to
Yeah.
hire the smartest guy in the room.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's new in the world of Cabin Coffee here?
Well, there's several things. One of the things that is one thing that we're reacting to is, when COVID hit,
Yeah.
we have many of our stores thrive. Thank you, Lord, for drive-throughs. That saved us. So that was one thing that we had to put more effort into. So a friend of mine that owns a Chick-fil-A in Rochester, we
Mhm.
called him down and to meet with our leadership team to
Okay.
ask him, and he didn't share any private information, but he shared with us what Chick-fil-A is doing going forward on this change, this fundamental change, not just in the United States, but worldwide with this
Yep.
COVID, and what we can do to not just survive, but to thrive. And so we put a lot more resources in our point of sale system. We got an online app right away.
Okay.
And we, most of our stores thrived because people still wanted to get out, at least go through the drive-through,
Sure.
you know, and get something and have something to drink and say hi to somebody.
And it's the ultimate no-touch environment. You're automatically separated from each other. So
right. And another thing that's fundamentally changed, back in the early 2000s, our number one selling drinks were coffee, lattes, and mochas.
okay.
Now, our number one selling drink are our cold drinks, our frappes and smoothies. They outsell our hot drinks, even in the wintertime, even up here in Iowa and Minnesota, believe it or not. It just blows me away. And so we are redesigning our kitchens, our existing kitchens, to have a double cold station in every one of those.
Okay, interesting.
And we are getting a new app installed. Now we have online, but we're getting our app ready and getting ready to launch that. And so the last thing we're doing is, you know, Jeff, we've been in more smaller markets.
Okay.
But now we're in the Nashville area and the Indianapolis area, and we're finding those two areas to be very fruitful for us.
Okay.
And so we're hiring a gentleman, a franchise developer, subcontracting with him beginning next month.
Nice.
And we're going to do some multi franchises. We're going to go out, instead of just owner operators that we have now, we're going to go out in these larger markets and sell. Like, we go to Kansas City and they'll end up opening 10 stores there.
So master franchise for those markets.
Yeah,
nice.
Exactly. But we won't open 10 at one time, Jeff. We'll only open like one, and then in 18 months we'll open up another one.
Makes sense.
Because we still have to build our foundation deep and wide to be able to support all the growth. So we don't want to go too hard, too fast.
Yeah. Now, do you still roast all your own beans, like in the different spaces, or do you do that more as a commissary and spread it out to everybody?
We do. Okay. So it's a great question. All of our stores have their own roaster, and they roast all their own coffee with the exception of the espresso. We roast the espresso here in our support center, which that's where I'm talking to you at now
Okay.
And then we ship that to them weekly.
Okay.
Yep. And we buy all the retail, and some other just general things that they need for their stores. We keep a few extra pieces of equipment in case something goes bad that we can ship to them out here at our support center.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I even heard that if somebody really wants cabin coffee, that they can order it online.
They can.
Nice.
Online. They can. And you need to help me find a franchisee in Texas, brother. I had to throw that in there.
The Austin area is just ripe for it, bud. I mean,
and when people see our stores, and I don't know if you looked online or not, but when you go in our stores, they see all these stars.
Yeah.
And the way it looks, we got saddles people can sit on, Western saddles. Our slogan is just be happy and have fun. We have that trademark. So they think, this must be from Texas.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in a way it is, but it was my wife's idea about the star, not me.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah.
You just kind of, they popped it in there. Well, I just say it's the North Star. We'll just go with that.
The North Star. There you go. There you go.
But it's also the Lone Star too. There's a little bit of in there too.
I'm still a Texan through and through, bro.
Through and through, always will be. So
yes, sir.
You take the boy out of Texas, can't take the Texas out of the boy. So
amen.
Well, are we ready for the fast 5 questions, my friend?
I guess we are, brother. Boy, those are hard questions, but they're great.
We got this. All right. So first one, you wake up in the morning, business is gone. You still have all the information in your head, $500, laptop, computer, place to live, and food. What are you going to do first?
Well, I've got this other little passion that you haven't heard of yet.
Okay.
That I love. I've got this little nonprofit called United to Serve with Passion and Purpose.
Okay.
And it's a group that I started several years ago when I was asked to run for Senate in Iowa, state Senate. Our governor at the time asked me to run, and my wife freaked out, so I didn't do it. So what I would do is I would kick off that United to Serve and go out and speak. what it's about helping people find their talents and gifts.
Okay.
Okay. Because everybody has them. And we all have our talents, God-given talents and gifts, and utilizing those, finding those and utilizing those to add value not only to themselves, but others. A lot of people need inspiring and encouragement. I believe that we're all here for a divine purpose. And my belief is, it's the fundamental part of it is we're supposed to honor God with all our strength. And number two, we're supposed to love one another and help one another out. So that would be what I would do. I would start some speaking engagements and going out there and having some classes and educating people to help dig deep on what they have to offer, because everybody is precious in this world and everybody has some talents and they just haven't figured it out yet. So that's what I would do. So it probably wouldn't even be Cabin Coffee then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to get along well because that's my passion and love too. So we need to figure out how to work together on that piece of it.
Okay, good.
What's the biggest mistake you've ever made in business? You got to choose one.
Do what?
You have to choose just one.
Okay. Well, and thank you for giving me this ahead of time. And I don't know if there's really only. And I don't mean this egotistically. I've made so many, I can't even figure out which ones. I can't even pick one. But I think the main thing is it goes deeper than that. It's just, you know what? I should have talked to God a lot more and looking for the wisdom to be able to make good decisions. That I think is my biggest mistake. Because I don't know. Is that a good enough answer? I don't.
That works fantastic. That's a wonderful answer.
Yeah, because I made too many, and I made too many. Yeah.
Well, and I've always said if you leave it up to God, He's got a really good sense of humor, and He will certainly throw things in your path that you weren't expecting if you're not very explicit about what you want. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. What is a good book that you would recommend for our audience?
Gosh, okay. Back in the 90s when I was with Helzberg, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I love it. I still use some of those today.
So this is I've had a love-hate relationship with the book.
Okay.
I love the principles. But I by nature I'm a literature. I have a degree in psychology and minor in English literature. So bad writing just drives me crazy. And I think I tried reading that book at least 10 times and could not get past the first few chapters. So finally, one of my friends said, "You know what? You got to get past all that and just get into the principles." Once I did that, oh, this makes sense. I love this. It's just that first probably 3 chapters of him rambling on about things that really aren't useful.
Right. For sure. Yeah, but I love the 7 principles.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've got a group of business owner buddies of mine, and we're actually going through that book this year. It's kind of a book club, and we take a book and we kind of dissect it and then utilize those principles and keep each other on track every couple months here as we're going through a book, and that's the one we're working on right now. That was the one that Danny said, "You've got to read it. Yeah, we're going to use this in the book club thing." And I said, "I can't do this."
You're thinking, "Oh no, not again."
I cannot read. Yeah, it's on my list of books that I couldn't stand. But like I said, I just stepped past the first few chapters and got into the meat of it. And I have no patience, so I don't have patience to wait for somebody. But yeah, I totally agree with it. It is a really the principles are fantastic, and it's like 7 habits, but there's so many other pieces that are part of that.
There is, isn't there? Yeah.
It's just a wonderful book.
But there's a lot more. I'm reading one right now called Thanks 1,000.
Oh, nice.
It's about gratitude.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it is just amazing. So if people are looking for some joy in their life, just look for the things that they can be thankful for. And it might make them feel a little better, Yeah.
Well, and I tell you, gratitude is such an important thing. And I think it's one of those things that people don't realize how important it is and
Yeah.
how it can really change your life. It's tough for a lot of people to have joy, and you're never going to have joy if you don't appreciate the things around you and appreciate the people around you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What's a good tool you use in your business that you might recommend for our audience? I always say I use more electronic tools, but I've heard everything from a yellow legal pad and a pencil to some fancy electronic gizmo. So
Yeah, tool. Does it have to be a physical one?
nope, absolutely not.
Okay. I think the I think the biggest tool for me with our team is when I come in here, I have a positive attitude. I really do. I
Yeah.
think that trumps almost anything. In the morning, I want to be happy. I want to say hi to all our employees. I want to acknowledge them. And I screw up, and by golly, they got a lot of grace for me. Thank you, team members. But I definitely want to have a positive. I think the biggest tool for me is having a positive attitude.
And that's the tool you have with you every day. Yeah. It's the tool you can
and being that light.
in every day. That's awesome. That is the first time I've ever heard that. And I think that's one of the best answers I've ever heard for this.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So if someone wants to get in contact with you or find you guys, what's the easiest place to find you?
Just, my email or our website,
Okay.
brad.b@cabincoffee.net, brad.b@cabincoffee.net, or cabincoffeecompany.com, all spelled out. Yeah. Either one of those two are fine to get in touch with me.
All right. We got to figure out how to make this thing come down to Texas here, buddy.
We do, don't we? Yeah. I mean, no pressure. But yeah, well, if we could just get one, gosh, it would just flourish now. And the design and the look, I'll email you some pictures of some of our stores.
That's awesome.
So, but I would just love to network with you some more, Jeff. Just to, I would love for you to be an ear, and I can be an ear for you. And I just want to help. I just want to grow, and I just want to grow.
Yeah. And I like to say the same thing. I mean, that's why I started doing a lot of these interviews. The first part of the podcast was really just me on there talking about these concepts, but I wanted to start to show people that if you want this, you can do it. I mean, you could have easily said, okay, I got laid off. I got another job. I need to have something else, keep the safe job. And I think the fallacy that most people don't realize is there is no safe job, because something can change. The business can change. The one thing that I've always said, I mean, I was laid off in 2003, October 2nd, 2003. I'll never forget it. And from that point on, for the next almost 12 years, I was affected by that. I stayed working for others, but I always had that in the back of my head that what happens if I get fired? What happens if I get fired? What happens if I get fired? And, it was not a great way to live for a long time there. The one thing, and now being an entrepreneur has not been easy. Starting businesses has not been easy by any way, shape, or form. But the one thing I will say is I've slept well, and I've never had that feeling on Sunday afternoon of, oh God, I got to get up here.
Yeah.
For all these years, since 2015.
That's priceless.
Yeah. So yes, there's been other worries. Yes, there's been money, challenges over this time period, but that's the nature of having a business. But, I just keep surrounding myself by cool people, and, they keep me going. So.
Yeah. And, I have that same story, sir, because when we were going to do this cabin coffee, my old boss from Applebee's went to Cracker Barrel, And he called me and wanted me to head up their development. We're going to move me, pay 125% of my sale of my house here in Clear Lake.
Okay.
So they would give me the cash, they would sell it. I could have enough to put a down payment on a house in Lebanon, Tennessee is where that is. It's about 40 miles east of Nashville. But I told Angie, I said, I want to live our dream. And we wanted to live in one place. I had moved so many times, Jeff.
Yeah.
And so had my wife that I just got married to, 3 years prior to that. And we wanted to have our daughter start and finish school
in one place.
In Clear Lake.
Yeah.
And so we did that. And I had those same insecurities you did.
Sure.
About, oh my gosh, you could get laid off. And that's what I told Angie. I said, Angie, we can move to Nashville, but no telling what the economy is going to do. We have more control opening our own little store here and doing our own thing.
That's correct.
And plus, I don't want to live a what if. I don't want to move to Nashville and think, okay, what if we didn't open this Cabin Coffee?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's almost worse. That's almost worse that you live that life of, God, I wish I'd have done that. If I had just tried it, the worst thing that happened, the thing I always told people, and I've told my wife, the worst thing that could happen is I just have to go work for somebody else again.
That's right. Yeah.
The best thing is it all works out in the end. And it's once again, 7 years in, it's not been easy every year, but it's gotten a little easier every year. Even during COVID, 3 of my businesses had the best years that they've ever had.
Congratulations.
Kind of ended up even, and that's the one where people had to physically come into it, but we still did fine during that time period. It was funny. I was doing the taxes for 2020, and I got done, and I fired my CPA, and I'm like, I don't know, just doing the taxes myself. And I got done and went, crap, we actually made money this year.
Congratulations. Yeah. Well, and I think it's it's even more than a financial thing. I think it's more of just a community responsibility to make your business grow. Because this business is not mine.
Yep.
Honestly, this is God's. This is all God's. So all I'm doing is being a caretaker of what he's provided for me, natural resources and everything. And so now, do I act like that or behave like that? Sometimes no, I fall so short. And there's so many times I'm insecure. So many times I have some anxiety. My life is absolutely not perfect. But I still have to look at this as I want to create jobs.
Yeah.
I want to have enough money to retire, but I don't need a huge abundance of money. The money that we make here, I want to pour back to open more stores and to provide more jobs. You know where I'm coming from?
Yep, absolutely.
And I think it's a sin if I shouldn't say we, because I don't need to judge others, but I think it would be a sin for me for all this to be all for me. And boy, we found out right away it isn't about us when we opened up Cabin Coffee. There's so many other things we got to do, and so many people we have to pay, all the vendors. There's so many things. And our vendors, we look at our vendors as partners because some of them we've still had 20 years. You know why? Because they've helped us. I can't just throw them out just because I'm saving 5 cents on a bottle of syrup.
Yeah, whatever.
Why would I throw them out in the left field when they helped us get to where we are?
That's exactly right. I think for me it was interesting because it was my co-working spaces have always been pretty small staff, so it wasn't as effective for me. But when we launched BK Wealth and we had our first Christmas party, and it was pretty small, it was in my partner's house. And year 3, we actually had the Christmas party down at one of our guys that's kind of South Austin area. They invited us all down, and we're sitting there, and my business partner and I are sitting kind of over by ourselves, and we both looked and we're like, we have a lot of mouths to feed. We have to make this thing work, because there's a lot, because it was not only the employees but their families, and you came to this realization, we have a huge responsibility
for all these people, and we don't take that lightly by any means.
Yeah. And that just shows your character right there, brother, and how much you care, because it is, and the decisions in a small town. I remember when I told my mother I was moving to Clear Lake. Now my mother's from Medill, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Right. But once they got out of high school, my mom and dad moved to Dallas for work. Right.
Get out of here as
And so
quickly.
she said, do what?
Get out of here as quickly as we can.
That's right. That's right. So my mother told me, she said, now, sweetie, she called me sweetie. So she said, now you moved to Clear Lake, you got to be careful about what you say and how you act, because things get around town a lot in these small towns. It's not like Dallas, the person right next to you doesn't even know what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
But in these small towns, there's just a lot of gossip, a lot of talk. And so you got to keep clean but anyway, so, when we opened up this business, that is so important that, the decisions I make, where I go, what I do, what I say matters.
Yeah.
And so, you gotta do the right things. And I don't go to bars. I don't go, I just don't do those things.
Yeah.
I don't like to go through them anyway. So, but anyway, I don't want to be in those areas
that way. But yeah, the other thing, you can't treat your
what I'm
employees
saying?
poorly. Yeah, you can't treat your employees poorly or anything like that, because it's going to get around.
It's going to get around. It's going to
Yeah.
get around. So your behavior, when you're in the grocery store, whatever. And so, yeah, but we have probably 400 employees now. Now,
Nice.
Franchisees have their own
Yeah.
employees, but overall we have a lot. And so, it's, when I was talking to you about the anxiety sometimes and the insecurity, it's because, my God, the decisions I make are important. But the nice thing about it, I just had a meeting with 2 of our employees here. We're doing our new questionnaire for our franchisees.
Okay.
I did most of those. I did have some help, but these 2 young ladies can do a heck of a lot better job than I can. And they took this and they said, oh, we need to have this. I said, take it away, girls. Do your magic.
Do your magic and come back to me.
Better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's that trust that you have of, what, this more than I do or better than I do. Once again,
Yes.
I always hire better than I am or smarter than I am, because I don't need to be the smartest guy in the room, nor do I want to be.
No.
I just want to be able to be smart enough to hire the smartest guy in the room.
Yes, no kidding. Yeah.
Well, Brad, this was such a pleasure speaking with you. Like I said, I hit it off with you right at the beginning when we first met a few weeks ago, and just look forward to the ongoing us getting to know each other better, and certainly helping each other out down the road. So,
Same
folks,
here.
You've got a wonderful connection here up in Iowa and around. So look for those cabin coffee companies. See if you have one close to where you're at, and go in and help Brad add more to the empire of cabin coffee companies all over.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot.
It has been an honor.
It has been an honor myself, my friend. Look forward to it, like I said. And folks, as always, we do this Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We put the shows out, so keep your eyes out for that. And we will see you all back here